again, we've had hundreds of conversations with military retirees, and we've recognized that for, we're already part of the 1% who serve, but there's a smaller subset of that population who's, let's say, on LinkedIn and retiring after, extra, higher ranks, longer years of service. And so that means you're going to be making higher levels of income, and recognizing that all the information was kind of more for what I'll talk about later is financial readiness, not necessarily for you, not for your income independence. So recognizing that if you do talk to someone like Mike Wallace, and he that's what he does. He said, hey, if you talk to me, he's got the stats too. And that's what he's real excited about, because the last 3 years he's had 300 people go through his program. Now he's got the data. On average, he was telling me this the other day, which reminds me, I need to go through the transcript and make notes on this, because he was saying something like, and Mike, if you're listening right now, comment below. But on average, people who go through their program are going to get hired, 3 months sooner, something like that. Well, also on average, people going through his program are going to negotiate a higher salary or whatever. So combine those things: higher salary, hired earlier, means more money in your bank account sooner, right? And some people kind of get surprised at how much it adds up to. So we can tell you that you're going to be making decent income in the future, but until you see it, you don't necessarily know. But you can have a war chest ready to get there. So that's what we do at US VetWealth, and I'm going to explain a little bit, kind of not how we're competing against the financial industry. That's not our point at all. We're trying to educate and provide access. And so we're consultants and coaches, not just for military retirees, but for those who serve the military retirees, right? We want to work with anybody who can make those whom we're meant to serve meet their objectives better. And usually that means something around, people tell me, sorry, it's Friday afternoon, been a crazy week, had to take my mom to surgery, lost a whole day. That was fun. But what people tend to tell me is, Scott, I don't quite know what I want to do after military retirement yet. But I kind of like to be done in 10 years, whatever done means. Just not feeling like I have to, go work for somebody else, so to speak. Unless, of course, I absolutely love it, or I've kind of made that, mesh of meaning and income. So, having a 10-year time frame to give yourself that opportunity is reasonable, right? Things are going to play out, and you got a lot going for you as a retiree. So how do we match the financial strategy to that? So that's what we're all about. And so that's what the War Chest Academy is really about. It's what I would teach. Really, I'm designing it to teach the new professionals that are joining and working with us in some capacity, either coming to work with us directly or people that we're partnering with. So I would run people through this program in that regard. So why wouldn't someone who ends up using our services want to know all this stuff, right? So that's what they don't typically do in the financial industry in general. It's like, why wouldn't we just teach you what we teach the financial professionals? You might as well know that stuff. So that's the idea, because if you've never seen this website, it's kind of come up in news recently. So it's always a fun one to pull up to, get everybody afraid, because, what do these numbers even mean anymore? That's kind of really the point. We just hit $33 trillion of debt like 2 weeks ago. And then here's what's really been crazy. I don't have a headline, pulled up directly, but I think what I've seen is we've already added in just 2 weeks, like another $500 billion of debt. Like it's something crazy, the amount of interest. So where is this all going? There's volatility in the economy, inflation, people worried about the stock market. I just saw a guy, the JP Morgan guy predicts a 20% down. So, and the point is, I'm not trying to be the financial planner that's going to project anything out, 10 years, let alone 30 years, is what financial planning is really about. What we're trying to do is give you access and control of what you have going for you, your military benefits. And turn that off. And so why not lock in and guarantee what you have, so that you don't have to worry about the risks of, gosh, I hope my retirement accounts work out and that none of this stuff affects it. Like if we can take this risk off the table, That's a pretty good story. So that's the idea of wealth insurance. And and it's a category that we've kind of created as an in-between from traditional financial planning of accumulating assets to what happens when you actually have more income than you really need. And you either want to secure that and just ride off into the sunset and guarantee it and not worry about it anymore, or do you want to start building wealth, getting into private equity, business, real estate, whatever it might be. But or do you just want to take time off and do hobbies and stuff? So I think I screwed up this. Hold on. We'll come back to this one. All right. So, one of the many questions we get often is, was it worth it in the sense of, did I stay in long enough? Did I get the right payment? Should I take this benefit or not that benefit to say, hey, did I, get what it's worth, the pension? Because unfortunately, you can't fully retire at retirement. So what we say is the better question is ask, what's it worth? Let's just get an idea of what you got and put it into a better system instead of just put it into the stock market and hoping it's going to work out over 30 years. Let's value it. Let's value you. It's your life. It's your income that we're really protecting. So that's what it's all about. And so how we kind of came across this, Jen and I obviously been together for 7 years now. And we got started because I had already been in the financial industry and she was a social media person and I needed help. And so that's kind of how we met. And she's helped me, grow the business. And every time you see my face out there, that's because she's helped me get the message out there. And our message is simply this, that when you think about how you were in the military and financial information ever comes up, it's always about financial readiness because of the readiness of the unit to go deploy and stuff. And that's great. And we want to, help people save money and all that stuff. But think about the kind of masses who that information is for versus the very, very few who make it long enough to kind of be in the situation you're in if you've, found us. So whether it was for military transition, career progression education, people said, hey, there's not enough information there. So that's where kind of Mike Wallace and Blue Water Advisors comes in. But when it comes to big decisions, I'm now in my 40s, 50s even. What do I do now about the survivor benefit plan and thrift savings plan and so on? Or what's it worth? Do I even need it? How do I reposition these things? Maybe I don't need to accumulate assets in the same way I was doing it before. Maybe I need to strategically reposition assets to complement your military benefits. So that's what happens when you end up in this kind of higher income, higher net worth situations. And so we wanted to create an opportunity for that, so you can position yourself out of the status quo and the groupthink that happens there. And again, that stuff's not bad, but it is a limited financial knowledge bubble, to put it nicely, right? It's keeping everybody saying you should put all your money in TSP and Roth IRAs. It's like, okay, great, obviously, sure, that's nice. It's cheap and tax. I mean, since when is cheap the best thing out there? But anyways, these are your standard strategies to start putting money away. But now what happens when you want to access the money? It's like, oh, I can't touch my money till I'm age 60. Like, well, what if I want to start a business or do something else with it? So, how do we do something in between that? So we're not saying to totally stop doing this or reposition it, but we can think about, hey, what do you got? Maybe I just kind of let that ride and start a new strategy, right? So whatever it might be, we want to kind of help you see where you're at specifically with our program. Because one thing we do know is that if you made it this far in the military, you're a high performer, or as Mike Wallace says, a high caliber individual. And so, okay, cool. We have that going for us. So the probability of making more than $250,000 of income in post-military life is pretty high. And that's just from having one additional source of income on top of your military pension on average. So with that in consideration, the next question really is, okay, well, now at this point, are you risk avoidant? Meaning, Do you just want to lock in, kind of like you did this years of service to lock in the pension? So what else can you lock in for other pensions? Can you duplicate the pension and not have to worry about, because I always talk about risk tolerance with your investments. So maybe, sorry, hold on, close this so it doesn't beep on me again. So maybe that's what we're looking at. You see that debt clock thing, you're just like, hey, I don't want to be tied into that. If we can take that risk off the table, that's fine. But another thing that we see is some people, and I say savvy in the sense that, hey, some people have assets or have extra income or extra assets that they want to be a risk taker. They like to say, hey, what could I do with this extra 10, 50K and put it to work for me? Or sometimes they do something even bigger, get into buying businesses or franchises and have to get loans and all that kind of stuff. So, thinking about, having collateral or using your additional income and assets to try to create wealth. That's kind of what we see more in this, wealth insurance strategy, tactics and strategy approach that we're doing. We say, why not be both? Why not have the ability to have a season? That was my frustration with the typical financial industry is everybody's selling their big strategies. So, if the market's up, then, they get a bunch of the new clients, the market's down, then people are kind of moving between, different strategies. So it's just, everything seemed to be going in circles. So with this approach, if we're just focused on reducing risk or taking smart risks, recognize that, hey, maybe if you're not a risk taker now, you will be in the future after more knowledge and or assets or access to something that you just weren't aware of yet. Wouldn't you want to have the ability to do that? And then, hey, if you go take a risk and make all your money and you want to take it off the table, wouldn't you want the ability to do that without having to start all over with a whole new program and stuff? That's the idea with the war chest, the way that you can kind of move it in and out. And we did some earlier videos this week that showed how to do that. And that's what I was saying earlier. We're going to continue with this War Chest Academy Live to explain this concept more and more, because we realize it's new for a lot of people. But here's the big idea. Again, we recognize we're just automatically going to be in this relatively higher income situation. So shouldn't our financial strategy now match that? And if you want to get into these kind of higher level income areas, you can. Either way, we think you've got a better opportunity than most, especially within that 10-year time frame, to jump up from whatever. I highlight number 4 just in the sense that this is kind of where a lot of people find comfort for a good 10 years and can sock a bunch of money away. Some people, go more independent, business owners, private equity, and of course they could make a lot more money annually. But I'm not suggesting you have to do that. I'm saying either way, whatever you want your lifestyle or purpose of your wealth to be, we can create the income independence. Obviously, if you're making the income and have a way to reposition it, then, why not, get that guarantee off the table, that the comfort, the confidence of knowing, all right, about 10, 15 years from now, whatever you want it to be, you could say, all right, I'm done. I've duplicated my pension. So that's the idea of the war chest, because we realize this isn't how it works out. We can plan the typical goals-based, retirement plan, but I think not only, yes, obviously something could derail it because something goes bad. Sure, that's obvious. And that's what you get insurance for. But I look at it from a different perspective. What opportunities are missed from just either limited knowledge, or for me, when I was getting out of the military, it was just a struggle giving myself the permission to be like, oh, I can do that. I can go make, more than, X amount of dollars a year. I didn't think I was worth it or earned it. I was like, and then finally I realized, hey, it's not about that. It's just about building a system rather than a goal. Because I didn't even know what my goals were. I just wanted to, be able to control and maintain, the lifestyle that I had. So I wasn't so worried about the numbers as I was the control. So rather than being stuck on a path where you're just kind of waiting over time to see if you hit the mile markers, we think that we can build systems that create better outcomes, essentially. So instead of being, focused on, all right, how much risk am I taking? What are my goals? Are they changing? Did I meet my goals? And you have to have all sorts of different advisors, not just one, but each one of them. There's money managers. There's got to be insurance, and then there's different layers in the industry. I explain that, I think, in my first book a lot, because that's important to understand. Because a lot of financial professionals don't understand the layers, and of course that adds more costs. And typically the conversation is, well, just save more for longer, and hope that works out. But and of course, taxes always come up, fees, and whether or not somebody's a fiduciary. And so understand all that stuff, but those are all, of course, we got to address all that and be knowledgeable about it. But that's not as useful in the sense as it's just information. It's not tactical. It's not useful. So we want to look at it from, all right, rather than avoid risk, we're going to provide, safety, right? We got to address the risks, but we build systems to do that. And so I don't want to be your advisor. It's your money. You make your own choices. We want to act as consultants and coaches when motivation is needed. But that way, as consultants, we can work with your existing advisors and money managers. But essentially, getting you out of systems you don't want to be a part of. Usually that means survivor benefit plan or maybe through a savings plan. So we privatize it, protect, always thinking about protection. We're an insurance-based company. We do investments as well, but rather than be just an investment fiduciary, we're thinking because when you hear the word fiduciary, you got to understand that they're talking about whether or not the recommended investment meets your risk tolerance for that particular set of money. And sure, that's fine. And we are an investment fiduciary as well, Series 65 investment advisor representatives. That's not our main thing, but we have that. But I'd rather take it up another level. Like, let's go to higher ground. I want to think about your money from a life fiduciary perspective. Like, what's really in the best? Fiduciary means you're doing what's in the client's best interest, right? So I don't want to just think, all right, this stock or that stock. No. It's like, what is the actual purpose of that dollar for your best interest? So that's kind of how we're thinking about this differently, and can give you better outcomes. That's our goal, is just to, from the side of insurance, the safe money approach, how do we give you better odds of better outcomes, probabilities? And so systems, not goals. So instead of having a straight line of, hey, let's plan for this 30 years from now. No, it's actually quite simple. The focus is to maximize income. How do we do that? Well, one way to do it is to serve longer, to increase your rank. Right. That's the only ways to make more income on active duty. But people start getting into real estate investment on active duty. Either way, in the civilian world, that's where you start negotiating income or create side income sources, or don't pay for things like the survivor benefit plan and keep more of that money in your pocket. And along the way, we're gonna keep, from a financial perspective. Well, if we're making more income, maybe we don't need to take the risks against the various dangers that could derail things. So we insure against that, or use insurance as a wealth building tool, so you don't have to worry about those dollars losing out. So rather than kind of from a fiduciary investment perspective, diversify the investment, we want to diversify the overall outcome potential, rather than have everything just tied to one thing, because that methodology was before the iPhone was invented, right? I think the world's changed a lot just in that decade or so. And so we want to give you, the way to be flexible and adjust for really not just the dangers, but opportunities. You want to be able to access your funds to maximize an opportunity if it shows up when you're ready for it. And so if all your money's locked in retirement accounts, you can't do that. And a lot of that comes into, for me personally, it was using my investments. Happened to be, I had saved them. I got out when I was like 30 years old, right out of the Army. So all my money was in TSP, but I wanted to start a business. So I had to eat the bullet and use it to just learn, go many years of not making money. So that's why I had to use my TSP. But in the process, I built a bunch of skills, and you're going to go through that same thing one way or the other, but you'll have a pension. I didn't have that. So since I've seen so many retirees get out and they had the itch to take advantage of that pension to do something a little bit on the side or a little bit extra to enhance those skills. The ones who did it, kind of like what we see Gary. You should listen to the interview with Gary, because he's done so many things to enhance his skills and his network as he's retiring out of the military. And ultimately, he's already creating income opportunities before he's even retired out. So this cycle just continues. And so we're in there with you as a place to access your money when you need it and protect it when you need to do that. So where do we actually fit in the landscape? And I think this is a way to explain that, we're not trying to compete with anybody here. In fact, I use and partner with many of these services, and in many cases recommend it. But since we are working with a more niche audience, or a niche client base, we kind of fit in a little bit differently. So want to just recognize that yes, of course, sometimes people are with a large traditional financial planning broker, and they've kind of gone more independent and managing their money themselves anymore, so they just don't need to do that, but they don't know what to do next, or they need insurance, and that's where they get that done. So we can kind of help graduate you up into closer of the private wealth manager approach. So we're obviously not in the Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs range of things. I just put that as examples, that's what you usually hear about, but there's lots of smaller kind of wealth management firms, and different. We don't have a minimum that you have to work with us. That's not the point. But we work with a brokerage called Ash Consulting, which on the insurance side of things, which is where we lean heavily, is the biggest in the country. So it gives us access to essentially the entire insurance marketplace, among other things and experts. So that's cool. But a lot of times folks can't work with us or aren't a good fit to work with us. So they should, of course, go work with the military friendly insurance agencies. And we've, actually, collaborated a lot with us. I've had clients that have used us and these other firms. So only good things to say. It's just, for whatever reason, there's different products that some of these companies offer that we do differently. So we don't have a dog in the fight when it comes to which insurances and companies to use, because we're independent. We can work with any insurance type or product out there. So what are some of the other things on here? Oftentimes you hear the fee only approach and certified financial planners and all that. Well, Trevor is a chartered financial consultant, which is essentially this insurance version of that. And on our team, whether it's through our consulting services through Mike, who was on with us yesterday, when we actually need a CFP, that's for more the advanced estate planning type stuff. Absolutely. But we often are just instead working with the fee only CFPs because they don't do the insurance. They're working specifically for a different reason with their client. They need to bring us in as a consultant, as the insurance expert. So great. So we want to support in that regard. For whatever reason, some of the fee only people really don't like insurance. And so all I can say is I'm not talking to those people. We're again working with the higher income military retirees, who this becomes one of the few places to put extra money and extra income when you don't have businesses or real estate or other deals ready to go. So, or if you want to, take your TSP dollars off the table when it comes to stock market risk and lock it up and do an annuity and just guarantee it, well, that's where we come in handy, right? So, and money coaches come up a lot. Trevor's offering a whole money coaching service, military money mistakes, right inside our program. Patrick Weiner, the military, the money mission. We been a big supporter of his work. So we think that for those that are still in the, hey, I want to get into personal finance programs, we're all about you getting more information, and then, hey, when you see an opportunity to work with us, this is kind of where we can fit in to all this. And if you want us to evaluate kind of where you've been at in the past with this stuff, or if you had a bad experience, I get it. I was on I had my, we have our old firms here just as examples. Like, I got nothing against my old firm or anything. I just didn't feel comfortable operating in that environment. But all this stuff is just going to exist anyways. And we know a lot of you have all sorts of weird relationships, or positive ones, or negative. I mean, weird. I meant positive or negative. But well, sometimes maybe it is weird. But whatever it is, we just want to recognize, explain that I've seen it all. I've had a client work in some capacity with any one of these organizations and more. So I've heard all the stories. So I just want to be supportive and meet you where you're at and just be useful, help you understand. You might not have known that there was differences between all these different firms and companies and how it all ties in, right? So we want to help you understand that as well, if that can be a useful service. Because this is, rather than, again, this linear goals-based approach, the war chest is a system. The system you can access at any time, any reason. You can put money in it, you can pull money out of it, but it can also complement your existing programs, whether they're military benefits, if you want to replace your SPP, or supplement it. If you want to duplicate your military pension, if you want to upgrade whole life insurance you got a long time ago, if you need more term insurance, or your term's about to run out, that comes up a lot. We've talked about options for thrift savings plan. Once you're out of the military, you actually can do a transfer. Oftentimes, recommendations are just put it into another investment account and now add more fees to it. What we talk about with our veteran retirement rescue is just take it off the table and guaranteeing it. And that's what insurance companies do. So they're not on Wall Street, they're in Des Moines, Iowa, right? So that's a cool part of this story. And that'll be, we'll have full lessons on explaining how the insurance industry works versus the investment thing. And I'll probably add more slides like that here. But what we want to say is, whatever income independence means for you, I don't want to just say financial freedom. I don't even know what that means. But the whole goal with saving money for the future is always income. Whether you're getting insurance, you're protecting income, right? So whether you're building wealth or leaving it for your kids, somebody's got to use the money at some point, right? That's the point. Is even if you're using the income to reinvest it somewhere else, are you going to get taxed on it? That's another thing to think about. Inside the war chest, using insurance. Hey, insurance is tax free. Yeah, we didn't make the rules, but that's why wealthy people have been using insurance as a place to manage their wealth, because it's liquid, it's accessible, and you don't have to report it and stuff. So it just becomes a nice place to put money when you've got it, and then access it when you need it. And if it's used in a non-emergency, it's only for emergencies, and that's what term insurance is for, or other types of homeowners insurance, fire insurance, that kind of stuff, right? Or health insurances. And good, that stuff, you want to get that stuff cheap. But when we're building a war chest, it's not necessarily a cost versus benefits. It's about probability of outcomes. And so insurance companies offer guarantees, and that's in a contract. That's the difference. You're not getting shares and hoping the stock market goes up. It's contractual. There's contractual upsides and downsides. Now contractually, the insurance companies can say, hey, if this happens, and essentially if there's a catastrophic event and a bunch of people die at once, they got to pay a bunch of death benefits. That means they're going to have to raise prices, right? So they have limits on how much they can do that. They also have limits on how much they adjust the interest rates, and of course linked to the bond markets and stuff. So, but they explain it all in the contract. So while yes, the downside could be bad, and essentially you could run out of money, and it shows that right there, so you can see it. So the transparency is so clear, versus even if there is transparency in what the fees are in a 401k or whatever, we're still just waiting and hoping to see how things work out, right? So that's a big part of this story. And it's why, again, I kind of left those other firms. Again, you need the investment managers and the money managers, because it's all that world's going to exist anyways. That's where the vast majority of the wealth is. And so they get all the attention. They got more marketing dollars. Again, the insurance companies, they're in Des Moines, Iowa. They're not in Wall Street. They don't do Super Bowl ads. Now, these are still like $200 billion companies. So it's not like they're, they're doing well. They wouldn't be in this business if they weren't making money. It's just, it's hard to compete against the Wall Street Goliath. But either way, as we said, we're trying to improve the outcomes, right? So that's essentially what the objective is just one way or the other. Are we do you have more control over your assets? Are you privatizing? Can we still profit from them, whether that's investment growth or be able to use the money for some sort of other opportunity, but to not have to just risk it in the market and hope it works out. So to add the guarantees, the insurance on it as well. So that's why that's our motto, because essentially what happens is usually when you go into a financial professional, like, all right, what are they going to sell me? Right. And sure, yep, that's what I do. I sell life insurance, right? I wrote a book about it. I make it very clear in the beginning. But we're trying to do it in a way that's more useful to you. So even if you don't work with us, hopefully you learned something. And if you did, let us know. We'd appreciate hitting a like on these videos or leaving something in the comments. So one way or the other, we just realize all the retirees are going to run into some of these questions one way or the other, and their professional they're working with may or may not have seen this stuff as much as we. So if we can help make these decisions easier, so you can go get on with the more important decisions about, hey, what do we want to do with our job? Where do we want to live after you retire out of the military? That's what we want to help you do. But we think so. We're gonna bank on a couple of facts. So usually you don't hear this in the insurance industry. We're going to assume you're not going to die anytime soon, and we're going to assume you're going to do pretty well financially. So in that regard, from what we've heard from talking with so many of you, it's just we get it. You want a backup plan, just to make sure that's everything's kind of locked in. Locking in other income streams is nice, so you just don't have to worry about how's that all going to work out. And then as you start making money, the question just comes in: well, hey, what do I do with this, right? And not have to pay taxes on it, all that kind of stuff. So that's what the war chest will do for you there. So our big thing, again, as I was just saying, kind of what are we doing? As since we've had this conversation so many times, we're offering our free audit, and this is just a way for us to help you, crunch the numbers, whether or not you're going to retire in a while or are going through the process, or maybe you've already done it because it is Survivor Benefit Plan open season. We know that specifically kind of the main questions on, VGLI, SPP, TSP, as kind of the main things. And obviously a lot of questions come up around that. But either way, from the perspective of, okay, now we're going to think of this as not as a benefit, but it's a feature. So let's see if it's beneficial for you and what's the math and all that. And, with anything else you have going on, how do things work in your favor right now? So if we can help you answer those questions, that's what we do. It's actually quite quick. If I don't know if you can see this screen. Here's our spreadsheet. We run through it. I can either do it with you, for you, or we can get it. But ultimately, we get on a call and help you address some of the questions that you might have. Some of the main points here, of course, understanding where you're at in your timeline, because while we can have the perfect timeline, you go to your retirement briefing, they're going to say, hey, here's the recommended things you should do at a given month. Well, that's just not how it happens. Everybody shows up at their retirement briefing with a different perspective on what they're going to do next, and in a different personal situation. So we want to acknowledge that. We want to meet you where you're at, not where the assumption is for the retirement briefer, just based on your rank and age and service. So that brings in a lot of other factors, not to mention the inputs you've gotten from friends and family and what their timelines were as they were going through this themselves. Because usually you're talking to your buddies who went a couple of years before you, and that's fine. But we can show you, because if your kids' ages are different, that's going to have an impact. Does your spouse bring in income? Are you dual income military? That's a huge difference when it comes to this. But ultimately, specifically for the Survivor Benefit Plan, is how's your health? We're thinking about health from what's my VA disability? I got to go through my medical checklist. Am I deployable? What's my flight status? Like, now you're comparing yourselves to military readiness still. But that's not how health works on the outside, on the civilian world, especially when it comes to costs of insurances. So if we want to manage that, let's take advantage of your health and reward you for it. So that's ultimately the main thing we're doing, because if we look at the odds of, I don't know, I think I had that slide here, but no. The next one, yeah, here we go. Because I was just, this is the brief we did yesterday. The odds of getting any money back from survivor benefit plan, one way or the other, are never 100%, right? And even just getting return of costs is on average. This is a particular scenario of basically both the I should have put the spouse's age, also about 48 years old. So if we can increase those odds with those same dollars that you would otherwise pay, because return of costs, if this guy doesn't die, again, that's what we're assuming, he's going to live to 78, then he'll have paid $270,000 into it without any guarantee that somebody's going to get something back, right? So if you're young and healthy, we can reward you for that. And so, this is kind of how we do it. Obviously, we're doing the workshops and training right now as we speak. We've talked about our work with Blue Water Advisors, essentially their model among many military transition executive coaching groups. There's a lot of them out there. Of course, we're supportive of that. We just think that what we've seen from Blue Water, it's a unique group. They're putting together a family approach and really helping people out a lot. So we want to support them, and we've obviously learned a lot from, because we obviously got clients from them. I just had so many conversations with people in that group. I just learned a lot, and so a lot of that information has come into this program. To be honest, the whole 10-year concept came out of talking to those guys, because they were just saying over and over again, yeah, kind of got a 10-year plan. So it's like, oh, well, that's funny, because our war chest strategy kind of matches a 10-year plan. And then we started doing the math on it. I was like, wow, this actually adds up pretty well if you've got the health and the financial resources to implement it, right? So why not know about it? So this is some of the ways we work with people. The consulting side of things, we usually implementing a strategy, or obviously, that's what Blue Water is doing when it comes to getting a job, getting more income. We're more of, hey, what do you do with the income? But we offer the audit, so you can get a snapshot on where you're at right now. And then on the coaching side of things, Trevor's Military Money Mistakes program is launched right now. And while the asset map is a very involved, it's our version of a financial plan, which you'd normally pay $2,500 for and get dozens of pages for sure, and a kind of vague explanation of what this is. An asset map is one page, and I think he's only going to charge a tenth of that, like $250. But for right now, we're doing looking for some free, anyways, case studies. So offer it for free. If you'd be interested in doing that, hit me up or hit Trevor up so we can talk to you about what that would look like. But you're going to find that super useful. Look up asset map if you don't know what it is. And Trevor, again, chartered financial consultant, so he can explain probably more than you need to know about the kind of standard stuff you see on a financial plan. It's way easier to see it on a one-page platform. So that's what that's going to be about. But all right, cool. Well, that's what I wanted to get out of the way today. Is kind of update and anybody who's following us or working with us. We're going to be reaching out to our existing clients and people we've been working with them, and let them know. This is all stemming from the book we published earlier this year to try to get the word out as the Survivor Benefit Plan 2023 season, open season, was still going on. So still a few months left for you to be able to opt out. So if you want to see what that would look like, take a look at the book. We offer it for free inside our portal. And obviously that's what was shown in the last slide. That's what the military retirement blueprint is. That's kind of our office space where we're gonna where we offer these programs. We have lots of videos in there, and downloading the book and stuff. So hold on, I'll pull that up right now. So when you log in, it's free to join. You can sync with your LinkedIn or Google account. And when you come to the book downloads, you can download the book. You can go to Amazon and get the hardcover copy, but you can get it for free right here, and check out our videos about a little bit more about the war chest. I'm going to be launching a whole new video series coming soon, so sign up and you'll get notifications about that. But if you do still have some questions about the survivor benefit plan, how do I make this decision? We've got a whole program in here that just thinks about basically, here's all the problems I've heard over the years. And so I made some videos to help address those situations. So you may find some of these useful back at home when you're talking about this. And then, of course, we've got a bunch of content about what do you do about thrift savings plan as well. So those are the primary topics that people are always asking us about. So that's where we started. But again, we want to create a program here for because this is a group platform as well. So it's like we don't have to be on LinkedIn asking all these questions. We can do it in a more intimate setting and more safer space, so to speak. So that's where this will kind of grow into. We'll have a networking group meetups, giving folks a chance to practice and we teach some tactics. I like the idea of teaching military retirees who are getting on LinkedIn for the first time, like treat yourself like a business. Like how would you showcase yourself as a business if you were, out trying to get hired, right? So, why not do the same thing in a way? So I'm not saying, everybody's got to create a YouTube channel or publish books or anything, but there's different ways of kind of tapping into that approach and still being normal way, So I want to show you, how to do that, or at least, give you some ideas of how you can just be a little bit more strategic and useful when it comes to all these new online tools and resources for networking, out in the civilian world. Because ultimately, it's, hey, what's the marketplace doing? Do we have the skills and knowledge to keep up with them? And unfortunately, we've been in a bubble. We don't take the iPhones on deployment or in ship. At least I'm assuming we don't. But the point is, we just don't have the time and the skill sets often that our civilian counterparts do. So, if I've learned a couple things just being out in this online space a little bit that I can share when it comes to networking or LinkedIn or whatever, I think that's a cool value add there. So more of that to come inside the Military Retirement Blueprint. But I think that's all for now. Jen, anything else you want to hit on or question?
Not really. I mean, just the only thing that that's popped out for me was that visual of the probability of someone getting the SBP. Normally, we show that like via spreadsheet and numbers, but that visual, I think that's a very eye-opening visual to see how much money a spouse will really get back, or what have you. So I thought that was kind of one of my favorite slides in this whole presentation.
All right, noted. The wife's favorite slide. I should be the goal for every presentation. What's my wife's favorite slide?
Well, there it is.
Okay, cool. Well, just hadn't done one of these in a while. Don't want to make all these videos a kind of, hey, look at us thing. So, but we'll have little bits here and there about how to work with us and kind of how we fit into the thing. So we wanted to probably edit this down into as we have a inside joke, a Josh video on our website. So more to follow there. But all right, Friday afternoon, everybody, got one more call, and then I'm either gonna take a nap or I don't know what. Maybe I'll go jump in the ocean. Okay.
Cool.
Well, enjoy. Are you doing an interview? You said you're in the podcast room, right?
Yeah, I have another thing in 20 minutes.
All right. Well, thanks for making time for me.
You're welcome.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for watching and joining us. If you found this stuff useful, please let me know, or let me know if you got any questions that we can address. Leaving comments, hitting the like button. Of course, we're not trying to build a big audience and stuff, but I get how all this works. So, it does give me feedback to let me know that you got some value out of understanding our approach. So we will see you all next week. Have a good weekend.
Take care.